Welcome to the Urban Wine Club podcast. Pour a glass, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first cocktail webinar series of 2021. I'm your host, Fotis Stamos, and as always with me, my main man, Ari Kalos.
Hello. How is everybody doing?
We're doing great. And what a better way, Ari, to kick off 2021 with our good friend, Kayla Quigley of Flor de Caña. Welcome to the cocktail webinar. Kayla, thank you so much for once again. Welcome back. And we were just discussing this earlier. Our very first cocktail webinar was with Kayla.
Yes, and Kayla was amazing, and our first one ever, and then our first one in 2021. So she's our good luck charm, and I'm so happy.
Whoa. I feel like you guys are setting the bar all the way up here, which is not entirely fair to these poor souls who are watching.
It's all because of you, Kayla. Let's just agree on that. But this helped jumpstart our webinar series because thanks to that segment, believe it or not, we got a lot of great interest from other brands and other representatives who wanted to join us and dive into this series. And for the most
part, we got a lot of great feedback. I mean, just from Kayla, her presentation, the information she brought, everything, the whole package was just great. And we thank you so much, Kayla.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, guys. You're very sweet. Thank you.
So I want to definitely, again, thank you for joining us and taking time to be with us as always. We feel that you're part of the Urban Wine family, and we have lots to explore for the rest of the year. We'll talk about that later on in the segment. Mm-hmm. I want to thank all of our guests that are joining us this evening on a Thursday night here in February. We're up here in the Northeast. We just came off a pretty big snowstorm. We're still cooped up. We still can't really go out. And it's been a joy being able to explore what we could do at home with family and friends with all these demonstrations. And besides the demonstrations, this has become an eye-opening experience of learning and educating ourselves more about the categories and the products that we're featuring here with all of our participants. And prior to Kayla kicking off our first webinar series back in the summer, I was an occasional rum drinker, as the rest of my group was as well, and that occasional rum drink was mojitos. And we've learned from you, Kayla, that it's more than just that when it comes to rum. And we also want you to give our guests that are joining us this evening, we can discuss a little bit of a breakdown of what rum really is. And then we can go into what, Flor de Caña and the history behind that. And then we can go into the demo of the cocktails that you're going to show us this evening.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, right? So most people assume that rum has to be in sort of like the standards, right? So what are your standard cocktails for rum? The mojito is the first thing that comes to mind. And usually some sort of like a really overly sweet frozen daiquiri or like a Chinese restaurant Mai Tai, right? Like something that is just so packed with sugar and too many ingredients for you to really actually taste the rum. And I think what we're finding right now, which is really interesting as a category at large, is that rum is kind of being perceived now as a sipping spirit, right? Like where we had the whiskey boom, I'm sure you guys dealt with it as well. We had this big whiskey bourbon boom where people were dying to get their hands on certain bottlings because they were drinking it neat and on the rocks. And there were sort of these like aficionados who were appreciating the particular spirit. What we're finding right now is that people are finding the value in rum. Because as an aged spirit, which most people don't assume that it is an aged spirit, it's lights out and every rum tastes so different. So it is a truly global spirit, which we can definitely get into a little bit in terms of the production and all of that. But it's a very diverse spirit category. And so I'm very excited that I'm working with Flor de Caña and that we're kind of coming up in this, sort of era of the premiumization of rum as we're appreciating it again as a sipping beverage and cocktail spirit, of course.
Sure. I mean, we've seen so many lately. Well, before COVID, we've seen so many cocktail programs and cocktail lists at different bars and lounges, and we're starting to see a bigger presence of cocktails being made with a variety of different rums. So that's a good sign to show that how to actually get people or consumers to actually explore and try cocktails with well-made rum.
Absolutely. And I think that because again, it's that misconception, right? Like people assume that rum has to be this like sugary, sweet, over the top. I can only drink it on an island or in a tiki drink that's poorly made. We're kind of breaking those boundaries, and people are appreciating it as a sipping spirit, as a nice cocktail spirit. And it plays very well, which we'll explore today a little bit, but it plays very well in some of your standard cocktails, right? So like a rum old fashioned, for example, a rum Manhattan, those are just beautiful, simple stirred cocktails that allow the actual rum itself to shine just like it would with a whiskey of whatever category. So I think that's a really good vehicle to get people to appreciate it, is through standard cocktails that they already know.
And Kayla, can you just break down for us real quickly for our guests what rum is?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, right? We should start there. So rum in a general sense, and by like EU definition of what makes rum, is it is a sugarcane distillate. And so to break that down further, ultimately what happens is you have sugarcane. I do apologize in advance. My dog is going to be barking in the background. So he chooses today to start to scream right at like 7 p.m. So it is a sugarcane distillate. So ultimately what that means is you harvest sugarcane, which is basically a big tall grass that grows in equatorial climates, in these really warm climates. And so ultimately what happens is you cut down that sugarcane. When you press it, you get liquid sugar out of the sugarcane. From there, we refine the sugar. So basically think of like a centrifuge, and you refine the sugar to basically be table sugar, like what you would put in your coffee, what we bake with, those sort of things. And there are different standards of sugar. So for example, you would have like turbinado sugar is not quite as refined as white sugar that you might find and put in your coffee, right? And then from there, what you're left with is this really kind of underutilized product, which is molasses. It's the byproduct of sugar refining. And so in the rum world, what we do 90% of the time, rums are made from molasses as their base. So what we do is we take the molasses, we thin it out with a little bit of water, and we add yeast, and that yeast eats all of the sugars that is in the molasses, right? So it starts to ferment. So basically you make like a sugar beer, for lack of a better term. Okay. And so that sugar beer is then distilled. And so distilling is just the refining process, all the more to make it a little bit more of a higher alcohol content, right? And get rid of all of those impurities. And then from there, we enjoy rum. Rum can either come off of the still, right? So we say off the still, meaning that it was just freshly distilled and it's clear. 100% of the time, if you distill something, it's going to be clear. No color, no additives, nothing like that, right? So when it comes off the still, that's what you would kind of assume to be a white rum, right? Unaged, a little hot, so kind of hard to drink, right? A little bit boozy, for lack of a better term, alcohol content. And then the other option from there is that you can then age it. I know you like this. And then from there, you can age it, which is typically what you find now as we're talking about sipping spirits and these cocktail spirits. People are getting excited about the aging with rum, which we'll talk about for Flor de Caña specifically. So that's kind of rum in a nutshell. There are many different styles of rum because it is a very global spirit. It can be made anywhere that sugarcane grows. But typically speaking, there's 3 different styles of rum. So you have Spanish style, which is typically a drier style. It's like Flor de Caña. So it's an aged, dry style of rum, not a lot of residual sugar, and drinks very much like a whiskey and a bourbon. And you have your English style. English style rums are typically a little bit bigger in what we call mouthfeel, right? So they kind of like take over a little bit more of your mouth while you're drinking it. They have more body. And then from there, you also have French styles of rum, which are like grassy. They're really funky. And the reason for that is because they take fresh sugarcane juice, they don't refine it, and then they ferment that. So that's the difference between those styles.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
You mentioned all these different locations of style of rums. What about, can you just tell us real quickly, what about rums that are being made here in the U.S.?
So those vary in different styles, right? So like we have an amazing craft representation, obviously up here in New England, right? We don't have sugarcane up in New England, right? It doesn't grow here. So it really depends. Like we're outsourcing, right? These craft distilleries that are located here are outsourcing for their molasses or for their sugarcane across the board, right? So they get to kind of pick what style they're going to produce. Most of them are producing English or Spanish style.
Okay. Excellent.
Kayla, also,
Typically.
can I ask a question? I don't want to put you on the spot, but Foti,
Please do.
Foti told me that everybody knows about the great molasses tidal wave that swept through Boston way back when. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the story. Oh, I've heard it my whole entire life, but I didn't know that the molasses was here, according to Foti, for rum production. Is that something that you could verify?
Yeah, so it's actually like, not to like derail from the general conversation of cocktails, but in terms of a really nerdy history thing, which makes me very excited. During colonization within the Caribbean, right? Like if you go back to like your fourth grade textbooks, right? We have like the import export trade, we'll call it, right? For political reasons. We have this trade triangle. And ultimately what was happening is that you had these global superpowers of France, the Dutch, the English, and the Spanish that were all taking over the Caribbean and looking for different things. Ultimately what ended up happening is that these English colonies or these English settlements within the Caribbean were kind of this forced monoculture, for lack of a better term, because what they found is that they could create an insane sugar refining process on these islands. Keep in mind, England, horrible weather, just like here in New England, they don't have sugarcane. So previous to the discovery of the Caribbean and sugarcane, they were using like beet sugar and all these really not so sweet ingredients to sweeten their foods, right? So can you imagine the discovery of sugar? Holy crap, like mind blowing, right? So ultimately what was happening is that they were refining so much sugar and sending it back to the mainland that what ended up happening is they were just shipping molasses off to the 13 colonies and to the US, which wasn't the US at the time. And so basically what they were doing is they were saying like, this is waste, we don't want it. We're just going to give it to the colonies here in the mainland in the US. And then what ended up happening is we got really kind of shifty about it and started making rum from the molasses. We were like, well, if we leave this out long enough, the natural yeast is going to ferment and we know how to distill. So they just started distilling rum. I think it's like 1820, there were about 70 active rum distilleries in Boston.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a huge history that just kind of has to do with this, basically a wasted byproduct.
And I think
so did that molasses disaster set us back?
Well, I think what Ari's referencing is like, I think it was in the early 20s in the North End.
Yeah, the molasses flood.
So did that set rum production in Boston back because they lost so much?
I mean, I would imagine. I didn't live it, but I would imagine. Not quite as old as Foci. Happy birthday, Foci.
It's Foci's birthday today. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday.
I wasn't going to get away with it, was I?
No, you weren't. You were not.
He is 75, everyone, just so you know.
Thank you.
So yeah, I can't speak exactly to that particular historical event, but I mean, it was a huge industry in Boston and just along the East Coast in particular, due to, obviously.
Interesting. It's just, I never actually knew that. And when he mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, I've always known about the event, but I never actually put two and two together.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you get into sort of the trade history and all of that for molasses in particular. And the phrase "no taxation without representation" is actually linked to the rum trade and molasses because essentially the British colony, the British motherland was basically trying to get away with taxing products that they were just not actually supposed to be taxing.
See, Foti, this is why I love Kayla, because you don't just get the cocktail demonstration.
I'm a nerd.
This is the full experience, right? This is the full experience.
I'm too nerdy.
No, it's awesome.
Listen, this is what it's all about. It's an experience. It's beyond, having, pretty faces and knowledgeable people and great techniques. It's also the experience of being able to bring something to the table that really inspires, educates, and all that goes into an experience. So for us, that's what it's all about. And I'm sure Kayla knows that from this point on.
I love it. I love the, why do we drink and how do we drink and why do we drink the way that we drink, I think is very, very important. So
excellent.
All right, well,
I pause my nerdiest.
I'm sorry for getting into the history side, but you can continue. I just wanted to.
I pause my nerdiness now.
So let's move on from we discussed what rum is, but let's talk about Flor de Caña. I mean, that's for me. It's one of the products and brands that I always recommend to folks that are, whether they're in our restaurants or is on the shelf at a nice hotel bar, lounge, restaurant, or your local spot, that folks have seen the bottle, they've seen its unique shape. But tell us a little bit more about Flor de Caña and its history.
Yeah, so it's a really unique history. So, I mean, the rum history in general dates back over 400 years, right? Like, again, we're talking about colonization and all of these things within the Caribbean. And really, that's when we start to kind of see rum come to more of a global understanding and a historical sort of moment. So, in the grand scheme of rum at large, we're actually not that old. However, we're 130 years old. So, Flor de Caña is from Nicaragua. So, we're in Central America. And where we're located and where we distill is in this beautiful little pocket in the northwest corner of Nica. And so what happens there is we have this beautiful volcano called the San Cristobal. And the San Cristobal is the most active volcano in Nicaragua. So that's going to be important for a couple of reasons when we discuss sort of the process of Flor de Caña and how it's made. But just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So our founder came from Genoa, Italy. To Nicaragua, had no intention of making rum, was actually in it for more of a sort of commercial trade route, which then became the Panama Canal. That's a very different story and a very long story for another day on our history lesson. And ended up settling in Nica and said, all right, let me open up a sugar mill. So we opened up the sugar mill in 1890. So we are celebrating 130 years, which is very, very exciting for us. And our founder, who I affectionately call Papa Pelas, ended up making rum just to celebrate the harvest. It was not for any commercial purposes. It was just because. And what they found is that they actually had a really great product for a couple of reasons, right? In the wine world, y'all talk about terroir all the time, right? Like, and maybe you guys can kind of just give a quick little description of like, what is a one-word line for terroir if somebody comes in and asks you in wine terms? Like, how would you define that for your pals?
I mean, as far as the term terroir, I mean, it's for me when I think of terroir and someone else like, what does that mean? It's basically everything. It's about your environment and it's about the energy that's around you or surrounds you. So it could be the combination of soil, climate, just the location that you're at in geographically, levels, how high, elevation. All these things contribute to, I think, the term terroir. It's basically what compromises this whole environment, this bubble. Sometimes I look at it as a bubble.
I think that's perfect.
Right?
Bubble is the perfect think of it. Like, and in terms of what, I think that's perfect. I mean, in terms of what Flor de Caña does and where we're located, where we've got Pacific winds coming in, so we have hot winds, we've got 37,000 acres of sugarcane, and then we have this really hot volcano. So we've got this little microclimate or bubble where we're located. So it ends up being really, really important to us in terms of our sugarcane growth and the aging. So again, flash back to about 1890 when our founder opened up this sugar mill. It was very small, right? We didn't have this kind of grandiose idea of what we were going to be. They found out that with this given terroir, they actually were able to produce some really great rum. So flash forward 130 years, the Pelas family still owns Flor de Caña, which is very, very unique. About 3 in 10,000 companies make it to 5th generation in any industry, not in the spirits world in particular, just in any industry at large. So we are, Eduardo, who is our current owner now, has our current CEO. He has 2 sons. I'm sure that one of them, if not both, will be working for Flor de Caña down the line. And there are no statistics on a 6th generation family. So we would be one of the first global brands to have a 6th generation ownership. So we're very proud of the 5th generation ownership and looking forward to that. So definitely a differentiating factor.
That's a lot of pressure on those kids.
Those poor kids, man. Those poor kids. So
they're going to drive them to drink.
Good thing that's what we do. So we flash forward 130 years. So Flor de Caña, the way that we are produced is that we take, again, that sugar, right? We have 37,000 acres of sugarcane now. We've definitely expanded over the years. We are single estate still to this day. And now, again, what does single estate mean? It just means that we control the process from field to bottle, essentially. So everything that happens in our sugar refining, everything that happens in the field when we're actually harvesting the sugarcane, through to the refining process at our sugar mill, through to the molasses and fermentation process, all the way through distillation, all the way through aging, all the way through bottling, we oversee all of it, which is huge and a huge distinguishing factor for Flor de Caña. Coming back to your question about like these craft distilleries here, right? In the US, they cannot be single estate. They don't know where that sugarcane is necessarily coming from. They don't know what the conditions are in that particular space. So that's kind of a leg up for us and something that we're very proud of. When we produce our rum, we do so with 100% renewable energy. We are the most sustainable rum brand globally in the world. So for us to be a global brand distributed in 70 plus countries and be the most sustainable in the world is something we're very proud of. And this is certified by a million other third parties, but the one that we actually care the most about is fair trade. So we are the only global spirit to be fair trade certified. And last year, 2020, we received our carbon neutral certification. So we're the only spirits brand globally to have both. Wow. So we're pumped.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're very, very excited about it. So sustainability is really at the core of what we do. So in terms of how we produce our rum, we take the sugarcane, as I was saying earlier, we take our sugarcane, we press, we refine. There's a byproduct of that process, which is the leftover husks from the actual sugarcane, like the stalks themselves. We take that and we chop that up. It's called bagasse. We take that and then we, from there, burn that, and that powers a steam turbine. Oh. That steam turbine is what powers our entire distillery. So distilled with 100% renewable energy. When we go into fermentation, it's a really unique process. And then from there, we go into our fermentation. There's two things that happen when you ferment a product, right? You get alcohol and you get CO2, right? The bubbling that happens on top of those fermentation tanks. Most companies will just have open air fermentation, which is fine. However, that CO2 is kind of a nasty byproduct for the environment. And so we have closed fermentation tanks and we actually collect the CO2 that comes off. We use a separate company called Carbox. And what they do is they collect it basically in these propane tanks, like, giant gas tanks, and they sell it back to beer and soda companies in Nika. So there's zero waste in our fermentation.
That's amazing.
Oh my God.
So zero waste. And then from there, we go into distillation. We distill 5 times. And the reason that that's important is because we're stripping away those really gnarly, like sort of alcohol tastes, right? We've all had bad alcohol before, whether we wanted to or not. We've all had that, like, oh my God, it burns going down. It's horrible. A buddy of mine who is not in the rum world, he's in the gin world. He is one of the distillers for Sipsmith. If you guys have worked with him, Jared Brown told me, good spirits warm and bad spirits burn. And so I thought that was a really, really unique way to be like, okay, I can understand that. Like, alcohol shouldn't be completely neutral, right, for our bodies. But if you're
going to actually remove paint, yes.
Yes, then yes. But so good spirits warm, bad spirits burn. And I think that applies to all spirits in all categories. And then so from there, that's why we distill it 5 times. So it's a really clean, non-ethanol on the nose or on the palate or anything like that. And then we go into aging. And so we age from 4 years, which is our youngest rum that we produce, all the way up to 30 years, which is where we can really extract the most out of a barrel. We use all ex-bourbon barrels. Reason being that, for those of you that know or do not know, if you are producing bourbon, it has to be, in order to age it, has to be new American oak. So think of the bourbon world and how big that is. There's a lot of barrels that can be used again. So we repurpose those barrels and they actually kind of have this really nice vanilla char. There's a flavor that exists within that barrel. So we finish our rum with those barrels. We have a cooperage on site as well. So it's not that we just get the barrels and then we just throw rum in them. We actually recoup and repurpose the barrels. We'll rebuild them as well. Any barrels that we can't use, any staves that are cracked or broken or what have you, we turn into furniture and we sell. Whoa. So it's a full.
You guys are like the overachievers of like every single thing you're doing. Like,
I don't know if you know this, but we're like super sustainable.
It's amazing. Like you guys are like my favorite company. Like, aside from the fact that you make really good rum, just listening to this makes you my favorite company.
It helps that it's delicious. It does help.
I mean, I'm saying, like, I know that it's delicious because I've from our very first cocktail webinar with you, and Foti graciously gave me some of your best stuff, and it was amazing.
What a guy!
But just and the birthday guy.
I love it.
And but aside from that, just listening to this whole like story about your company and the history of it, it really is very impressive. And I'm very
why wouldn't you support and drink a product from what Kayla just said?
Yeah. which I mean, we'll talk additionally about like the sustainability portion and that sort of thing. Like obviously it's near and dear to our hearts. And, you know, we, over the past 130 years, we've had to kind of hone in on that as being something that was really important to us and like at the core of the ethos of our brand, right? Like, so it's not that it's always been like this, but we're trying to set the standard and kind of move in that direction. And I would argue that we are setting the standard for the spirits world with that. And then coming back, like, you know, I mean, Ari, we talked about it last time as well. Like the fair trade certification is so important for us. And it's such a distinction because, again, let's just be pretty frank about it. The rum trade and the rum history is not exactly a pleasant one. It is like rife with social injustice, to say the least. And it is, you know, it's got a pretty gnarly history. And so fair trade for us is really important because what fair trade accounts for is sort of this holistic understanding and sort of accountability, right? So it's in three parts. So the first part is environment, right? So all of the things we just talked about for renewable energy and the carbon neutral and all of these things, thumbs up. We tick the box on the, you know, on the environmental. But there's also two components that are really important, which is our community. Who lives where we produce this rum, right? Who's around us? Who's a part of the Flor de Caña family outside of the Pelas family members? And then from there, who is actually making the rum, right? So the employees. So they take this into consideration when they're you know, developing and certifying these companies. And so for us, we hit the mark for all three because we're single estate. So we can control the entire process from field to bottle, right? And which gives us our fair trade certification, or at least a leg up in gaining that fair trade certification. So the environmental we've already discussed, the community portion of it, being fair trade. If you think back on like, who is fair trade? What are the brands that are fair trade that come to mind? Both Ari, can you think of like any particular brands?
Like specifically?
The coffee industries have been promoting a lot of fair trade. Like Starbucks.
I was going to say, like, off the top of my head, I can't name a brand.
The
but like,
only reason why I know this is because I spend about $30 a day in Starbucks, and it's been planted in my that's what. So that's what comes to mind.
Yeah.
Starbucks is one of the first companies I think about fair trade.
Yep.
But I think there's also other coffee companies also that follow that suit as well.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think outside of the coffee industry.
I mean, the coffee industry is a perfect example, right? So because, and it's a great lead into what I was about to say, because you think about Starbucks. When Starbucks opened, they were charging a significant penny for a cup of coffee. But the reason is that they were charging a premium for a fair trade brand. And so what people were understanding or weren't understanding is that essentially what was happening is that your cup of coffee, the person who actually farmed those coffee beans got a kickback from that cup of coffee, right? And so that's the same thing that happens with Flor de Caña. So we charge a quote unquote premium for our rum because we're fair trade. That money goes back to the people who actually produce the rum. So it's really, really important for us as well. So that's a part of the community aspect. And the Flor de Caña family does not see that money. We are not intervening with that at all. That is between fair trade and the community. So we don't see that at all. And then in terms of the employees, just to kind of like really hit it home, you have free schooling and free healthcare for anybody that works for Flor de Caña. Wow. Which is huge. So, and this isn't a new development. So the free schooling has been since 1913. So we have over 100-year history of free schooling. So if you work for Flor de Caña and you have two kids, guess what? They can now go to school for free at a top line school in Nica all the way through high school, which wouldn't have necessarily been an opportunity that was afforded unless you were working for a company like Flor de Caña. In 1956, we opened up the company hospital. And so our master distiller, Tomas Cano, born in the company hospital, has worked for Flor de Caña for 33 years and went to the company school. Like, so just like an amazing sort of full circle situation there.
So Kayla, since I know you personally, even though we've never met.
Friends. We're best friends, it's fine. I'll just say it.
How can you hook me up and get me a job over there?
It's okay. You can have, I'm not going to give you my job. I was going to say I'll give you my job, but I love my job too much. It's okay. We'll have an offline chat about how we can get you set up over there. You might have to relocate to Nica, but that's totally fine. It's beautiful.
I'll do it. It sounds so good. Like I'm there.
Perfect. So, I mean, these are a lot of things that, just kind of differentiate the brand, right? So again, like being 5th generation family owned, soon to be, or hopefully soon to be 6th generation, being distilled with 100% renewable energy, being carbon neutral, which is huge for us, the fair trade certification. All of this is huge. And everything that we talk about is always certified by a third party. So it's not just me talking out of my ass. I promise that. You know, I think like there's a lot of like sort of the brand's fluff that can go into these things. But this is all certified by third parties. And I'm happy to share that with you guys if you want the documentation for our sustainability as well, to share with anybody else who is here.
Wow. I mean, this is so much to, you know.
We haven't even made cocktails yet.
All right, wait, on that note, let's segue our way into the cocktails. Because I see a lot of good stuff on your table there.
Oh, this is all just for display.
Right? That's just your average everyday table, right?
Yeah, this is just a pretty standard table. It's nothing crazy. It's like kind of my breakfast setup. So today we're gonna do 3 cocktails today. So kind of like fly through them. We just introduced, and thank you guys so much over at Corks Up and Urban Wine Club, obviously, for supporting. We have introduced a new SKU for Flor de Caña, which is our espresso. Espresso without the E. So it's espresso. Yeah, so Flor de Caña espresso. So this is our aged rum. So it's a 7-year as a base, which is very interesting for anything cordial or coffee, liqueur, or anything like that. Usually it's something really neutral, right? It's like a vodka base, and it's not an aged product. The difference here is that this is an aged product with coffee concentrate from local farms, and then the sugarcane syrup from our sugar mill. So it is a very sweet product in comparison to the rest of our rums, which add no sugar. And again, certified as such. So I wanted to introduce this by making a little rum espresso martini, because I think the espresso martini is kind of like a bastardized sort of cocktail. I hate to say it, right? Like there's so many versions of an espresso martini. And I think it's a really simple cocktail to produce. And so I wanted to just kind of quickly cover cocktail basics with this cocktail, if that's all right by you guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Heck yes. So when we're making a cocktail, essentially the easiest thing to think about is that a cocktail should be roughly 3 ounces for most of your classic cocktails. Without any ice or dilution, you're usually building to about 3 ounces. And what I mean by that is all of the ingredients that go into your cocktail should be 3 ounces in total before you shake or stir. Pretty straightforward. And then if you dilute correctly by shaking or stirring, then you should have about 5 ounces in total at the end. So that's why most of your cocktail like glasses, such as the Nick and Nora that I have here, is going to be a 5-ounce glass. Or your coupe, right? We've seen this guy. It's not the like 1990s, giant Cosmo martini glass, right? That's like your 12 ounce.
Basically, Kayla, you're telling us that there's a reason for the size of these glasses.
It's crazy. I know. It's kind of crazy. Like, I'm not trying to like jip you out on like any, or like, give you less of a cocktail.
Ari's biggest complaint when we go out is why are these glasses so small?
Well, also, you got to think about it too. Like, think about the design of the glassware, which is a totally different tangent that I would go on. But you don't want your cocktail to get cold or to get warm. You want to enjoy it as it's properly being served to you. So just order another one. Just drink it. Stop complaining. Just order another one.
Just open a tab. Don't be cheap.
Yeah, just open the tab. Grow up. Open a tab.
On Foti's credit card, by the way.
Oh yeah, Foti said he's got it for you. So this cocktail is really, really straightforward. This is the espresso martini. So we're going to start with the Flor de Caña espresso, and I'm just going to do 1 ounce into my cocktail tin. Boop, done, 1 ounce. And then typically, I'm sure that you've had espresso martini is probably made with vodka, right? Most people do it with vodka. And I'm not going to. We're going to use our 12-year rum. This is aged in ex-bourbon barrel, which is what's imparting that color and that flavor as well. And I'm going to do equal parts. So just 1 ounce here as well, right into the tin. Notice that I'm not adding ice yet, because if I go off on a tangent, or if I forget something and I walk away, it's going to dilute as I'm producing the drink. And I don't want it to over dilute. So I never add ice into my tin or into my cocktail shaker until I'm ready to actually shake. Because ice is so important to a cocktail. You should really have about 30% dilution, give or take, on most of your cocktails, arguably. And that's a whole separate conversation on an ice tangent that I can go off on. So far we've got our rum as our base. We have our espresso liqueur. And then we're going to add some espresso. This is unsweetened. I'm only going to add a half an ounce because there's a lot of coffee flavor already in here, but I want the bitter from the espresso itself. So just a half an ounce right in as well. And then we have the pleasure today of using these dope syrups and juices from Cheeky, which is a company that's out of Brooklyn. It's kind of like created by bartenders for bartenders, that sort of thing. But to kind of simplify the at-home cocktail, situation. So you don't want to make simple syrup. If you don't want to make lemon juice, which is super wasteful because of obviously we don't have citrus up here growing in like citrus groves. It's a really nice way to kind of hone in on the sustainability factor by ordering a already pre-pressed lemon juice or pre-pressed lime juice or mint syrup or simple syrup or what have you. So I'm using their simple syrup, which is just sugar and water. Very, very straightforward. And I'm adding a half an ounce of that into my cocktail tin. Easy peasy. And then from there, ice into my tin. You don't want to be stingy on the ice. Again, you want it to be properly chilled and properly diluted. And then I'll lock my tin. You might be using a Boston shaker, which will have the glass on the other side, which is totally fine. These are just different styles. They do the exact same thing. And then when you're shaking, what you want to do is essentially you want the ice to hit both sides, right? So like this is not a shake. It's kind of lame. I've seen that a million times, right? You want to like clack it. And it sounds silly, but you'll be able to hear the ice kind of get soft, right? It'll start to break up. And that's when you want to kind of stop, because ultimately what you're doing when you're doing the shaking motion, you're just diluting and chilling. That's it. Super straightforward. So then you're going to strain. You can strain with what's called a Hawthorne strainer, which is this guy here. All it does is catch the ice. But sometimes, depending on the ice that you use, might actually break down a little bit more and kind of chip away. And so I use a mesh strainer as well, just so I don't have those ice chips sitting on top.
Oh, that looks so good.
Oh,
there you go.
Super good.
And as I said, this is 3 ounces in your glass, and that's an exactly 5 ounce pour. So you're good to go.
So,
that's your espresso martini,
so
which is my favorite cocktail.
Your nerdiness makes you like the best mixologist, I think.
we need to invite you.
Mixologist is a pretty aggressive term. I reject your aggressive.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
I reject that term.
If I pick someone to make my drink, it's you.
I think you stop before you get ahead of yourself. But no.
Settle down, Art.
So, I mean, there's a science to what you're doing, right? You just mentioned, because we've all had our fair share of awful drinks when we go out. We've had our share of drinks that are on the cuff, on the fence, and then we've had great drinks. And it's always that like the anticipation if we're, who's making the drink and if it's going to come out well, right? But if you follow these, I think, very basic, simple rules and approaches, the results are amazing, fantastic. I mean, I've been a part of many cocktail sessions and webinars and demonstrations where the same drink that I've drank for so many years was reintroduced to me with just some very basic approaches and little slight changes, and it was it was a different drink.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and if you think about what is a cocktail, right? Like, I think we haven't even addressed that yet, right? A cocktail is just spirit, sugar, bitter. That's it. Like the standard cocktail. That's why the old fashioned is literally just spirit, sugar, bitter. That's all it is. And there's obviously adaptations to it. Right? There's like family trees of sort of cocktails that kind of spread out from these classics. And pretty much every cocktail can kind of be brought back to that. And I think that there's standards for a reason, right? And so when I say that there's a 3 ounce build for most classic cocktails, it's because it's built from that particular type of cocktail family, right? For lack of a better term. So when you have these sort of like over the top, really crazy ingredients that are always so like complicated and, convoluted, you lose the spirit and you lose the kind of intention of the cocktail, right? Right? Like, how many times have you had like an over the top, like super gross frozen, strawberry daiquiri or something like that? It's like, I'm just drinking sugar. That's all I'm enjoying right now, right?
So you're saying I shouldn't go to TGI Fridays for my cocktails every time?
Listen, I respect Fridays for what it is. They are great at flair bartending. Do not speak ill of TGI Fridays. But I mean, like, there's standards for a reason, right? So like, and I think right now what we're finding as the rum world and the spirits world in general is adapting, people are at home, obviously with COVID and all of this, like at home, people are starting to appreciate cocktails and get a little bit nerdier, which is exactly why we're doing this right now. So like, like people are starting to kind of figure out, why do I like what I like? Why did I enjoy that cocktail? How did they make it? Can I make it at home? These sort of things are starting to come to the forefront. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have less of this over the top crazy cocktail phenomenon that was here for a few years. And it's just going to be simple, like easy, great execution, right? Like make a nice espresso martini, make a nice classic martini, like nice Manhattan, 2-spec, make a nice, old fashioned, these sort of things. Like I think people are going to start to appreciate that a little bit more because they're doing it at home, which is great.
I agree.
And then, so, again, like what is a cocktail right now? I mean, we just added bitter from our coffee element. We added sugar from our espresso and obviously from the simple syrup. And then we added a little bit of rum. That's it. It's the simple build of a cocktail. The other thing that we added is ice. And I cannot understate, or overstate rather, the importance of ice in your cocktail. So I recommend, if you are an at-home cocktail person, invest in some 1x1 small little silicone cubes and trays, because you will have a very different cocktail experience with nice ice that breaks up evenly as you are stirring and actually dilutes your drink evenly. But again, that's a different tangent, but just food for thought.
Yeah. Can you just tell us the name of this guy that's next to you?
Which one?
The little guy to your left. Can you see him? He's right there.
That guy?
Yeah, that guy.
You can see that guy?
I can see him. What's his name?
Hey, bud. That's Cicero. You want to be a part of it, bud? Are you so cool? You can get up here if you want. He's like, what are we doing?
Sorry, I was just looking at him, and he's so cute.
I was like, I can't see my screen. I couldn't see. It was like my name is blocking it in the thing. So I was like,
I saw him there. Moment. I just want to know.
I had that creepy moment where I was like, who's behind me? I was like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing?
Who's the guy with the Jason mask right next to you?
Exactly. I was like, it's just a wall. I don't understand.
Sorry, I just
no, that's Cicero. That's my little dude. He's the one that's been screaming in the background.
He's a cutie.
He is a cutie. So, and then, moving forward in terms of our cocktails, so the espresso martini, I think, is definitely on the rise. We're seeing it kind of all over menus and things like that throughout the city. But I wanted to do kind of a fun cocktail for those that are maybe a little bit hesitant towards egg white cocktails or haven't really had an egg white cocktail. And go into sort of the other family of cocktails, which is the sour. So sours are typically made with a citrus ingredient, right? To give it that sour element. So it's spirit, sugar, bitter, and then citrus. So these are your sours. It's like the margarita, it's the daiquiri, it's those sort of cocktails that we're familiar with. But egg white has been introduced into sort of the cocktail lexicon for what we call mouthfeel, right? It kind of enhances the overall mouthfeel of a drink. It is safe for you to consume, no issues, right? We don't have to worry about anything like that. If anybody joining us is vegan and does not want to do egg white, if you're following along or just for future cocktail purposes, chickpea water or aquafaba works very well. So you can do basically if you just have a can of chickpeas, right, you can save that water and that will act as the sort of same emulsifying ingredient as an egg white would.
Interesting.
So I don't know how that would work in other, sort of culinary spheres, but in terms of the way that works with cocktails, it's the same effect. And then this also introduces a very interesting concept called the double shake. So you may have seen this depending on where you're out and about. So this cocktail is going to call for 1.5 ounces of our Flor de Caña 12. And again, we're using the dark rum here, or a darker aged rum, because it has those sort of sweeter notes, even though it's a dry style, right? But it has those sort of bourbon notes from the aging. So we want to be able to taste that through. So this is going to be
repeat the name, because you paused a little bit. What was the name?
For which one?
What you just said right there.
Oh, so this is the New England Sour.
Okay.
So this is going to be with our Flor de Caña 12, and it's 1.5 ounces. So just a 1/2 ounce more than the previous cocktail, nothing crazy. Again, you're going to note that this is a 3-ounce build. From there, we're going to use Cheeky again, and this is their cranberry lemon. So cranberry is really interesting. And again, it's something that, because we're in New England in terms of sustainability, cranberry has the same pH, like fresh cranberries have the same pH as lime. You can utilize fresh cranberries as that sort of sour agent instead of having limes, right? Again, we don't have citrus here. So just ways to kind of combat that, depending on what you're trying to do for your cocktails. And I'm going to use 1 full ounce here because this is a syrup. So it's their cranberry lemon syrup. So that's going to act as kind of a nice little mix on my sour and my, my sweet. And then they have their lemon. This lemon here is going to be shelf safe. So what that means is that it's likely pasteurized or has like a shelf stabilizer in it. So you can have it for a few more days than you would normally, or a few weeks rather, fresh lime juice in your fridge. And we're only going to add a 1/2 ounce into this because again, it's going to be pretty tart, right? So we want to kind of counteract that. And then here comes the fun part, egg white. So you're just going to crack your egg and you're not going to let the yolk fall in. Just let the egg white fall in, discard the yolk off to the side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do double shake. So one is called a wet shake. You can imagine that that's with ice. And then one is a dry shake. So very straightforward. So what we're going to do is throw a couple of cubes in there. Doesn't have to be all the way up to the top. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of ice cubes as I'm throwing them around my dining room, or my kitchen rather. And then we're going to aggressively shake this. Reason being, again, we want to emulsify and really mix in those ingredients. So this one's going to be pretty aggressively shaken, and then we're going to do it twice. That's number 1. And then you're going to strain into the exact same tin or glass or what have you. Remove the ice. So just like you would pour into a glass, you're just going to do it right into your tin. You're going to get rid of that ice from the tin itself. And then you're going to shake what we call a dry shake. This has no ice in it. And then you're going to do that for about the same amount of time. And it feels weird because there's no ice, so you're just like kind of awkwardly shaking, putting a lot of effort into it. But then what you're going to find is that you have a really beautiful cocktail.
All right, I got to see this.
You're like, prove it, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Yummy.
And again, a 5-ounce build.
So, that looks so good. What?
Well, why are you in Somerville, dummy? Should have come to Brighton.
I know.
Uber your ass.
I mean, I made it 8 hours here. I could have another half hour.
I've been only 20 more minutes. Yeah, 20 more minutes.
20 minutes. Yeah, exactly. That looks so smooth. It looks very smooth.
And so as you'll see, like it's going to start to settling out right now. So you have like sort of that like almost like a beer foam head on the top. That's just from the egg white. And all that does is, again, it helps with the mouthfeel, quote unquote. And I hate that term, but it's the best way to describe it. It's just the way that you feel while you're drinking the drink. So I hate it, but it's true.
Textures, right?
It definitely changes. Exactly. It changes the texture.
It's actually Foti's middle name, but I don't understand why.
So would you recommend all sour cocktails to be hit with egg whites?
Sorry, I lost you guys for a minute there. Are you still there?
Yeah. That was just, so do you recommend?
I heard something about Foti's middle name, and I don't even actually want to know the rest.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very curious why you didn't laugh at my joke, but now I understand.
Okay. Well, because I feel like we're best friends now, so I don't have to laugh at all your jokes. I don't have to pretend anymore. Exactly. So what happens with this particular drink is, again, it's a sour. So if this did not have the egg white in this drink, we'd have to modify the specifications in the recipe because it is very sour. So what happens with this particular drink is the egg white smooths it out. The texture helps with the overall sour notes, and it doesn't make it unpalatable. So it's really important. And it's really important to balance those ingredients with your cocktails. So you out there might enjoy a more sweet cocktail, add some sugar to it, add more sugar to it, right? Like you can tweak these ingredients to fit what you enjoy. But they're just kind of standard recipes being built within this sort of, again, the cocktail family tree. And then the next cocktail I really wanted to do, because it's fun and tiki, and I love a good tiki cocktail. What are your experiences with tiki? Like, have you had good experiences, bad experiences, a mix of both?
I don't remember.
What'd you say?
I want to say I don't remember because they were so good.
I like it.
Oh no, Kayla, can you tell us for our audience, because I'm sure the term tiki has been placed in a lot of cocktail lists, but what is the definition of tiki?
Yeah, so tiki is a really interesting concept because it harkens back. There's like sort of two like pioneers of tiki, right? And it all comes back to this sort of idea of Polynesian pop. So this sort of like escapism idea of what the Caribbean and Polynesia, so like Hawaii looks like. And it's sort of like the South Pacific, right? And so you have these two, Don Beachcomber and you have Trader Vic, who are sort of these two bartending pioneers who bring this sort of idea of tiki, which is now how we understand it, like these tiki idols, right? Like this guy here, like little tiki mugs, and sort of these like exotic fruits, these exotic spices and rum in general to the cocktail world. Because if you think about it, this is in the 1920s, 1930s, you're in the middle of the Depression, right? Like everybody's a little sad and a little broke. And you have these two guys who are coming, and they were all on the West Coast, coming from their travels in South Pacific or from their hard knock life, trying to create some sort of an escapism. Don Beach did it first. And ultimately what ended up happening is he was like, I love to travel. I traveled the South Pacific. I'm going to bring that to California. And so basically what he did is he kind of created this sort of weird escape. And it's sort of like a very hilarious image of itself, because it actually is not reflective of what anybody drinks within the South Pacific, right? But what he ended up doing was kind of creating this Polynesian pop. And so what ended up happening is people were really jazzed about like escaping from the BS and the hardships of the Great Depression, right? And so that's sort of tiki in a nutshell. That's why tiki has sort of this like kitschy, fun, over the top feel. It's because of the fact that you're trying to escape something, right? So it's these exotic fruits, it's these citrus fruits. And in California, he was able to do all of these things because he had citrus groves, right? So he was able to create these cocktails.
Do you know what my understanding of tiki is? My very first experience of tiki, and Kayla, you might be too young to even
I know where you're
this.
going with this. I know where you're going with this.
It's the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch in Hawaii, when he put the tiki idol around his neck, and it was all bad luck from there.
Greg Brady.
But that's exactly it, though, right? It's this idea that it's like this, it's this like escape, or it's like harkens to like this one particular image, this one particular cultural moment, this one particular space. And it's so fascinating because it's changed over the years, and I think it's been lost in, I would say, between like the 30s and then really recently. There's been sort of this gap for about 80 years, give or take, right? Where it's kind of been this like horrible, aggressively sugary cocktail. We couldn't really find the recipes that were being served. We didn't really understand why they were being served, nor why the ingredients were what they were. And now there's this resurgence of tiki as like sort of this niche bar market. I think it's super interesting. I mean, there's a whole bunch of tiki bars popping up all over, and you're finding on menus, right? Not just dedicated bars, but tiki style cocktails.
Yes.
Typically speaking, your tiki cocktail, if you had to define something, would be largely rum based, right? Usually with blends of rums from different parts of the world, because they all offer something very different. You have a citrus element, and then you have spices, and you have bitters, and you have sugar. So the spices are kind of something that is newly introduced. And so what we're going to create today is a coffee grog. So a grog is typically a cocktail that is made with rum, usually a navy strength, so something that was like over the top in proof, and then has a spiced element mixed with a citrus element and a sweet element. And then obviously water, which is denoted as just water in most of the history text, but it has to do with obviously dilution. So easy peasy. So
I like that.
Yeah, so it's a really great cocktail.
Kayla, you're teaching me a lot of things tonight.
Well, so we're not making a navy grog today because we're not using overproof. What we're going to be doing is what I'm calling the coffee grog. It's going to be a little bit.
Everyday life is navy level.
And mine is just grog, so I'm just always groggy. So what we're going to do as we wrap up with our final cocktail is going to be 12-year, our espresso. We're going to use some lemon juice. We're going to use some bitters. We're going to use some pineapple juice to add a little bit of sweet and then a little bit of acidity as well. And then we're going to use some honey. So it's going to give it kind of a nice little balance across the board, and then a little pinch of salt as well to kind of like pull everything together in our tin. So this is the only cocktail that we're making that is not a 3-ounce build. This is a 4-ounce build, a little bit higher. But reason being, it's a navy build, top build. I like it. So we're going to go just 1 ounce on the 12-year. And what you'll find in a lot of tiki cocktails is that there are a lot of ingredients, but they're usually smaller portions, right? So it's not going to be that you have 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of whatever. It's going to be like one of this, one of this, one of this. And it's all going to kind of come together in this really beautiful way. So then we're going to add 1 ounce of our espresso. Yum, yum, yum. Maybe I'll just deviate and I'll just make an espresso martini again. Really throw you guys off. What are we going to do? Nobody knows. A little bit of lemon juice as well. Again, you need that citrus element. So that's just going to be a 1/2 ounce there. And I obviously play around with these ingredients. Like if you're picking up the cheeky things, like the cheeky ingredients, play around with them. They're a lot of fun. And they vary from fresh lime juice or fresh lemon juice. So obviously just have some fun with your cocktails. And then honey. So that's going to be our sweetener that's added in there as well. 1/2 ounce of pineapple juice. This is just canned. Fresh is always best when it comes to really any juice. But again, keep in mind the sustainability portion of that. Like it's not entirely sustainable to be shipping pineapples all over the place. A couple of dashes of Angostura bitters. And what bitters does to a cocktail is kind of what salt does to a dish. It pulls all of the ingredients together by adding that bitter component. And then I am actually going to add just a little pinch of coarse salt into my drink as well. I know, crazy. Why are you doing that? Again, that's just going to pull everything together as well. If you're missing something in a cocktail, if some of your cocktail ingredients are not popping, for lack of a better term, add just a pinch of salt.
Really?
See what happens. Because it's going to expand some of those ingredients. Your sugars will be a little bit more vibrant. Your citrus will be a little bit more vibrant. So it's an odd thing to think about, but it does definitely work. So then we add our ice. Again, we never add ice to our tin until we are ready to actually produce the cocktail. I do this without making a mess. And then we are going to shake. And the pineapple juice is going to have kind of a similar effect to the egg white because it ends up actually really kind of foaming when you shake it. It's really beautiful. And then we're going to use a taller glass, Collins style glass. And then you're going to do what we call just dump. So you literally just put it all right into your glass.
Oh my God, that looks so good.
And tiki is a lot of fun. You want to have garnish on your tiki drink. We haven't added garnish to the other two because there's no reason for it, right? Garnish should be something that is useful. It imparts some sort of flavor for whatever reason. And so I'm going to put a butt ton of mint into this drink. Some dehydrated pineapple as well.
Oh.
And a tiny little orange just because it looks beautiful. And again, dehydrated so I can extend the use of that particular citrus fruit. And then a reusable straw rather than using plastic. The reason for the mint on this is that we have coffee, we have sugar, we have citrus. The mint is going to kind of pull it all together with the herbal quality and the freshness. And about 60%, give or take, of your taste is your nose. So that's the reason that we add these sort of ingredients into our drink. And that's why mint is really important for a cocktail. So cheers. There's your grog.
Wow.
Looks so good.
The only thing that's missing is us there trying those cocktails.
And that was your call, not mine.
Kayla, you're the one host who makes the fact that we're not there a true injustice because
Your
these
fault, not mine.
cocktails
I
look
refuse
so
to accept
amazing.
responsibility for that.
All right, so
refuse.
moving forward, we are going to be reporting live from Brighton.
Yeah, we gotta do post-vaccination or post-COVID or whatever.
Right.
Whatever happens, like we gotta get with you to get some of these. Like they look amazing. They really do.
This has
Oh,
been.
they all taste horrible. Don't worry. They're just gross.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a whole bunch of yuck in a cup.
Who's going to help you now with these drinks? This 1, 2, 3 drinks there. You got to have some.
What do you mean? I got the dog.
All right, fine. But no, Kayla,
What do you mean?
This has been great. As always, you always keep the pushing the level up as always with your demonstrations, your plethora of information, your knowledge, your passion, and I also sense your great devotion to the company that you work for. I mean,
Thank you. I
you
appreciate
can't
that.
you can't not be devoted to this company. This
yeah,
sounds like an amazing company, and Kayla has an in to get me in there. So
Yeah.
Right,
So
perfect.
this actually might be the last time we all see Ari, who's going to be, filming down in Nika. The next one.
screw Urban Wine Club.
right?
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Why don't we take this time now that we're coming to the finale of the segment is to have our guests ask Kayla or us any questions about tonight's
Sure.
demonstration, something about the cocktails, maybe something about Flor de Caña. If we can leave it open, please feel free to ask questions. But I did see a comment that I want to address from one of our guests this evening, from Andrea. who kind of, I think, give us a little bit of a fact check about molasses during the right. I think Ari, if you can find it, I guess I got it right here first. So Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for participating, and thank you for the fact that Andrea made put into the comment box that molasses was stored in Boston. The molasses that was stored in Boston actually was created. That created the Great Molasses Flood was used for the military. That's I
didn't know that.
It was used in munitions.
Yeah, for
interesting.
So thank you for.
I like it.
Yeah, this is what
Andrea, where were you on the night of the Great Molasses Flood? I want to know because you got a little too much information here.
That is so interesting. I did not know that. I'm limited in my scope.
Well, Andrea also commented that this has been amazing. Thank you so much for hosting this event. And that's basically all you, Kayla, because
right,
you really did. You brought the knowledge, you brought the information. I learned a lot. Like we had a webinar with you, and I learned a lot then. So this time around, I was like, all right, now it's going to be about the cocktails. And again, I learned a lot. And it's just amazing the knowledge you bring. And if we appreciate it so much.
I appreciate it.
If I can add a couple more notes as we're going through this, is that for our guests, you can find the Flor de Caña products, the 12-year espresso on our platform, on our shopping cart at Urban Wine Club. You can also find the Cheeky products also on the Urban Wine Club platform as well. And people can just simply order online, click, and we'll ship it right to their door.
You became a floating head now.
Perfect.
Just so you know.
Yeah, I like this little background situation that's happening.
It's like Max Headroom over here.
Our goal here is to also not just educate, but we want to make it also a convenience for our members and our guests that they can find these products as accessible as visiting our platform, our app, urbanwineclub.co, and visit our website.
And Kayla, once again, you are one of the best guest hosts we have. You bring so much to the table. Your company is just amazing. Like seriously, like even without drinking it, I'm one of those weird people that like I taste the stuff that I think about, and like when you describe Flor de Caña, like I think about that a lot, and like I know the taste is good, but like with the knowledge in my head of what you guys do and what you guys represent, it's just so much better. Like support this company. This is a great company.
It's like drinking with a purpose, right? I mean, there's a million brands out there. Not to keep anybody too much longer, but there are a lot of brands that have approached bartenders out there, or mixologists or bar managers or whatever, like because we have the cocktail knowledge, right? So it's easy to kind of like make that transition. But what ends up happening is that these brands come at these people and they don't have the same sort of like core pillars, right? The brand pillars to kind of like stand on. And if I don't work for Flor de Caña tomorrow, I would still drink Flor de Caña because of what the brand is, right? And it's not only just great liquid in a bottle from our 4-year all the way up. It's just like the brand itself and the people that I've met and have had the privilege of working with who produce it. I'm proud to do them the service to actually be able to serve, these cocktails, or they're just, liquor to lips, quote unquote.
That's why I keep harping on the subject, because it is so cool what you guys do. Like, I can't get over it. I just keep talking about it, and it's so amazing.
Because of that, we're going to bring Kayla back again. So
absolutely,
let our folks know that Kayla
she can't start our 2022 segments. She has to come back before.
I know. We need something in between.
But we did agree with Kayla that we'll run a series with Kayla and Flor de Caña. Seasonally, there's going to be a great opportunity for different cocktails based on the seasons that we're going to roll into. So, I mean, we're in winter now. We're definitely going to have Kayla back, right when we get ready for the spring, which I think is not that far away, because I was told today that we're close to just 50 days till spring starts.
Well, I was going to say, is it ignorant of me to say that, like, thank you, Foti. Is it ignorant for me to say that, like, it would be so much, like, is spring and summer the rum season?
I think it's all year round.
I mean, it's all year round.
I believe it's all year round, but I'm saying for the lay person.
Yes, I think that's the cocktails that are created that are like citrus forward, like mojitos, for the example, right? Like I don't want necessarily a mojito when I'm freezing, but it's sort of people don't understand, or the misconception is that you can't enjoy rum as a sipping spirit. I want a nice glass of bourbon. I want a nice old fashioned, right? But you can absolutely have a rum old fashioned or a stirred rum cocktail, something spirit forward, something warming in those winter months. I think that right now, like the biggest challenge is to not just for Flor de Caña, but for the rum category as a whole, is to get people to understand that you can enjoy rum year round. Doesn't matter where you live, right? Like you can enjoy rum year round. So I think that's really important.
And the cocktails that you made, like I'd say 2 of the 3 I would enjoy in winter, no problem, because they look smooth and they look very.
Let's be honest. If it was given to you at any time of the year, you'll drink it no matter what.
Yeah, shut up. You drink it no matter what.
I'll drink whatever, whenever. I don't care. Like that's me.
Yeah, what do you
mean?
I
don't represent the normal person.
We know this.
On that note, we should all leave so that Ari and his head can fit on the screen.
But again, Kayla, thank you so much for doing this for us. You've been great as always. You make me want to drink rum all day every time we talk. But thanks again for your expertise, great showmanship. You're a wonderful person. Let's put it that way.
You're awesome nerdiness.
All right, Ari. I think we want to thank our guests.
Thank you. I love working with you guys, and I appreciate everybody.
Excellent.
Thank you. All right, Poti, any last thoughts?
I just mentioned to our guests, again, visit urbanwineclub.co, download our app as well to get all the fun information about events, also all the great products that we keep loading to our platform. You can connect with other members on our app as well to share information about what's happening, what's trending, what's cool, what you're drinking. Follow all our social media.
On that note, Foti, if you have more questions or if you want to understand more about Flor de Caña, connect with us on the app, and we have Kayla says we're good friends now, so we'll directly connect with her. And Kayla, if you haven't joined the app, can you download it?
I don't think so.
What happened?
We missed you for the second there, Kayla.
Oh, I couldn't. You guys broke up a little bit there.
I was going to say, if people have questions more about Flor de Caña, anything else, like connect with us on the app and we'll ask you. And then I said maybe you should just download the app too, so you could be on there, so we could directly connect with you.
I love it. Done. No problem. Cool. It was amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining. To everybody that tuned in. And I hope that you enjoy some rum espresso martinis. I think that's like the easiest win out of all of these cocktails.
Absolutely.
As always, thank you to Poti and Ari for having us. And, the Urban Wine Club is a great educational platform, and that's what we're all about. So
thank you.
Keep it rolling, and I'm looking forward to see you guys not in 2022, but a couple more times this year.
All right,
Kayla, you're awesome. We thank you once again. Foti, thank you so much. Thanks everybody out there for listening, for watching. We're going to post this tomorrow, February 5th, and we will have all the links to Flor de Caña. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kayla, again.
Of course.
We learned so much. You're awesome. We love you. I don't love Foti. He's mean to me, but it's his birthday.
And it's his birthday.
But we have to be nice to him. Thank you,
Happy birthday, Poti.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kayla.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.